when you have a customer with an old home that wants to meet with you, or they're pricing something with different contractors, don't be afraid to offer them an option that's a slight upgrade that I truly feel is the better decision in the long run. This is their forever home. This is where they're raising their family. Let's spend a little bit of extra money and do this all right. So it's something that I can be proud of. It's something that I can stand behind. And at the end of the day, I know you're going to be much happier with this decision down the road. Good morning, everyone. It's Tyler here. It is another week, another recording of Midweek Modern Craftsman. I was actually away last week. I kept it all a secret from you guys and girls. I didn't want you to know. I went away with my dad, my stepmom to Whistler, British Columbia. We went skiing. I skied a lot when I was younger, and then I skied a bunch in college. And the last time I had been skiing, I tried to take the girls for the first time skiing, and it was up in New York. It was it was a few days before COVID hit. We were in New York, and the news had begun to spread that New York was going to get shut down. So that was, I guess, 23 years ago. I hadn't been skiing since. Just life has gotten away from me, and it hasn't been a priority. We haven't been up to Rachel's parents' house up in upstate New York in the winter that much, or if we have, it's just difficult with kids and skiing and expensive, and I haven't been. But we went out to Whistler last Wednesday. I got home last night, which was Monday night, so it was very late. If you haven't skied Whistler, which I had not, and again, I've skied a fair amount growing up, from my teens until I guess I was through college, and then after college. So I've skied a bunch out west. I've skied a bunch northeast. I had never skied Whistler or West Coast, and it was insane. Skiing for everyone, all age groups and experience levels, but just the amount of skiing. There's basically nothing off limits. So typically there's on-piste skiing, which is groomers and trail, and then off-piste skiing or ducking ropes or backcountry skiing. And in Whistler, it's essentially everything is skiable. So there's groomers, and then between every groomer or groom trail, there are black diamonds, double black diamonds, areas to hike, areas to ski. So you can take a lift up and with minimal hiking, or even no hiking, be skiing very steep bowls, alpine bowls, which is pretty crazy. It was Whistler and Blackcomb. Actually, you know what? I'm going to record a podcast next week about my vacation. Excuse me. But if you have not skied Whistler, and again, I've skied a fair amount, it was insane to see how much skiing there is. It's just everything is skiable as you ride up the lifts. I think 3 lifts to get to the top. It's just endless skiing. Everywhere you look, everything's skiable. Cornices, cliffs, bowls, everything that you could ever want. And it's readily accessible from the lifts. I've never seen anything like it. The resort, the ski area, everyone was respectful, kind. It was so clean. Really cool skiing. So if you have the chance, or you like to plan ski trips, or you enjoy skiing, I would recommend Whistler Blackcomb, because it's insane, the skiing out there. So that out of the way, I'll record something next week if you guys are into skiing, winter sports, just about my experience out there. The second thing on my list, oh man, Siri thinks I'm talking to her. I don't know why. Do you hear that? I guess it's my Apple Watch. Siri, I'm not talking to you right now. Let me turn her off. Let's see. How do I do this? No, my phone's on silent, or my watch is on silent, so I don't know how to do that. So sorry, Siri interrupted you. Second thing, speaking of Canadians, because I was just in America's Hat skiing, but Chris Murray sent me a care package with a t-shirt. Thank you, Chris. But even better is he sent me not one, not one, but two packages of coffee. So my wife, I got home last night and she said, "Oh, you got a few packages," and I ordered some dirt bike stuff. I got another race coming up. Um, I She said that you got more packages from something, and I said, "Oh, it's from Chris up in Canada." And she said, "Why does everyone keep sending you coffee?" And had a little attitude about it. And I said, "Sounds like you're jealous to me," which is something I say to her often. She's like, "I'm not jealous. I just don't know why everyone's sending you coffee." I said, "Well, if it's an issue, then don't drink it." And she just looked at me and gave me a scowl. But I didn't tell her how I told people to send me coffee recommendations. And this is the second person to send me coffee. So please, if you guys want to send me coffee, I will take all the coffee. I will give you my unbiased opinion of it. I'm looking forward to trying this out with the new coffee maker. But thank you to Chris. If you guys do not follow Chris, it's Chris Murray Custom Cabinets. Check him out. Awesome guy, awesome family, awesome work, and he's in America's hat, and he likes coffee. So we have a lot in common. But thank you, Chris, so much for this. I appreciate it. Other thing, I did have the first race of the year last week. I was on the bike that I didn't want to race because I'm having issues with my race bike. So it, I wasn't super comfortable on the bike racing it. I had never raced it. I thought I'd be okay. I didn't feel great on the bike all day. Excuse me. I guess I felt all right, but I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel 100% confident. So I don't think that I rode my best. I ended up taking 46th out of around 520 riders. That'd be all age groups, all ability levels. I did burn a check in there, which I'm kind of unhappy about, which would have put me up about 10 positions to where I would have been more pleased, that 30, 35 to 40 out of 520 riders. I would have been more pleased with. But at the end of the day, I was safe. I didn't crash. It was somewhat fun. I didn't feel great on the bike all day. So it was all right. I want to get my 300 back up and running and that be my race bike. I have another race coming up this weekend, which appears to be a lot of racers again, different type of racing, a lot tighter this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping to get my two-stroke back in working order because I'm more comfortable on that bike, especially in tight stuff. But again, 46th out of 519 or so riders. I'm all right with that. It's not where I wanted to be. I didn't feel great on the bike. I didn't have a great day. I got very, very tired of just handling the bigger bike in the tighter, sandier sections. So I think again, if I didn't burn that check, I would have been in a better position for myself. I would have felt better about it on the day. But that's what happens. Learning experience, go from there. Hopefully I do better on the next one and I get back on my normal race bike. But that's it for racing. That's it for introduction. Let's talk about this week's blog post. So yesterday on my way back on the plane, I had written a post about working in older homes and developing the customer base that will support what I want to be doing in my remodels. And that's stripping everything back to the studs, reframing if need be, a full gut remodel. And I know that term is thrown around a lot on Instagram, social media, articles, magazines, videos, but there's a difference there, right? When I fully gut something, when I fully gut something, I'm not just taking it down to the studs. I'm then fixing and correcting and flattening framing if need be. So we're truly rebuilding a space, rebuilding a home from the inside out, which is very labor intensive and in turn more expensive, takes more time, takes more materials, takes more patience. And then, there's a cost associated with that and an amount of time associated with that not all customers are willing to pay. And when I went into business, my customers didn't see the value of that, and I didn't do a good job of selling that, and I wanted to maintain and preserve budget a lot of times. So I didn't think it was that important. But I'm at the point now, and I have the customer base now, that I want to, if we're remodeling a space, I want to take it to the studs and I want to reframe everything, inside out, and build a new space within the space. And I try and find customers that are willing to afford me that luxury. And I will be the first one to tell you that I'm not necessarily, um, of the same mindset with, essentially, this isn't for every customer. If your customers cannot afford this, if you cannot afford this, I'm not that much different there. If I were to be doing this, I don't know if I would pay, um, if the value is there for me as a customer, because that's just not where my tax bracket puts me. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to be working for the customers who value this. And part of that reason is that I have to offer a warranty on my services. I have to stand behind my services. So if I'm not controlling every aspect of that renovation, I'm liable to have to deal with, callbacks or issues, or we finish the job and they say, "Hey, I wish we would have torn this all down because it's leaking around our windows, or the plaster continually cracks seasonally." So I want to be able to own all of that. In my own home, I understand the benefits and the cost and the labor associated with this, and I may be able to live with, a partial renovation where I leave some plaster intact. But for my customers, I don't. I want to mitigate my amount of liability and my responsibility. And if I were to partially renovate a space, and not clearly communicate what that includes and what it doesn't include and what may happen if we don't, it sets me up for a ton of headaches. So I want to find the customers who are fully willing to embrace the type of work that I want to be doing for other people. And again, not everyone wants to do this, and that's fine. Um, it's just about finding your customer and just about what you want to be doing. If you don't want to go this in depth, and this isn't the type of customer that you want to spend the time and effort finding, that's perfectly fine. It's just, with the scale of my company and being a niche company and wanting to not do a ton of volume of work, this is what works best for me. And I've found my stride with this. It covers me legally from a liability standpoint and everything else. So it's the path that I go. And again, that's not to say in my own house that I wouldn't partially renovate something. I would, but I don't have to. If there's an issue, I have to deal with it. It's not an issue that the customer has to deal with, that I have to go and fix, that's pulling me away from another job. So, find what works for you and your business. But for me, when I'm renovating a space, I want to, with my business, I want to pull down to the studs. I want to flatten everything. I want to reframe. I want to basically build a new space inside of an existing space, that just aligns with the services that I want to offer, as far as the aesthetic, the quality, the durability of a project, and controlling every aspect of that renovation. I don't want to be tied to existing constraints where a ceiling's not flat or walls aren't level, and then fighting that throughout the entire project, or being pinned or bound to existing conditions. I'd rather take it back to ground zero and then reframe and start out from there. And then I own that entire project. I can warranty that for, I believe 1 year is what AIA dictates. I am warranting for 2 years, so I have no issues standing behind my project when I go about it, this way. So, for, conversation's sake, and also don't forget to hop online and read the blog post that goes along with this. There'll be different information in there. It's kind of where I base my podcast off of, but there's written documentation that you guys can go and read through. And they're always, they're going to live there, so you can check them out there. refer back to them. But give them a read. Let me know what you think. All right. So for conversation's sake, we're going to talk about a master suite that I did in Haddonfield a couple of years ago. And the scope was, it was a second floor of a 100-year-old home. For back then, they were actually production style homes. There was a lot of homes in this area that were the same design, or altered, flipped, mirrored, but some have a porch, some don't. But essentially, they were production style homes back then. But it's 100 years old. It needs renovating. It was built lightly back then. So for today's standards, we really needed to beef things up. But it was a second floor renovation. There was one tiny bathroom on the second floor. There was a 4-foot cast iron tub. They wanted to expand that bathroom, so make it bigger. And there was a pedestal sink there. They wanted to get a vanity. And then they wanted to add a master bathroom to bedroom space on the other side of that. And then we were going to renovate the existing bedroom. It was also opening up some walls in there, putting a header in to where there was a back area so that we get a flush beam on the ceiling, just opening up the space. And we provided the customer budgeting for gutting the bathroom, the entire bedroom, the ceiling, reframing everything, reframing the ceiling. And it's the first time I had worked for them. Maybe they had gotten pricing from somebody else or ballpark, and they were wondering why it was more. And I explained to them what I wanted to do and how I wanted to start from ground zero. And I wanted to remove everything and essentially reframe this whole space. And with the bathroom areas, yeah, it's a non-negotiable every time you're doing a bathroom for me that the entire space has to be gutted. For utilities, to make sure everything's flat, to make sure your framing is good, check the floor framing, make sure it's going to be adequate for tile. I saved myself a lot of time in the end not having to fight our tile installations when things are framed correctly in the first place. And it just makes for a better project for me. I know a lot of people in older homes will cut out the plaster in an area that tile's going, tweak the framing, redo that, skim coat the rest of it, and leave the plaster. For me, it just doesn't make sense. I'd rather treat that space as a remodel, a full gut remodel, completely redo the framing, insulation, all the utilities. It's a 100-year-old home. All the cast iron and the lead piping is there, the galvanized water lines. I want to get rid of all that stuff and take it to wherever we have access to, so that whenever the time comes to renovate another space that ties into it, they can then attach to new plumbing, attach to new electrical. I don't want to finish a bathroom and say, yeah, we left the cast iron in, and then that start leaking a year after we finish the project or shortly thereafter, because I'm going to own that and they're going to ask me why I didn't do that. So I want to treat these spaces as a full gut. There's no negotiation there. But in this project, we have a bedroom off of these two areas that realistically doesn't need to be fully gutted. There are two pretty big exterior walls, which you could gut and check for insulation. You could leave the interior partitions. You could leave the ceiling and drywall over it if you don't feel like patching in the plaster. But with the expense of adding a bathroom, opening up that area, expanding another bathroom, having to get into the ceiling to do the framing in the attic for all of that, we're going to have two brand new spaces in an old home. There's going to be new walls, new trim. And to me, it didn't make sense to leave all of that. The ceiling wasn't flat. It was cracked. It at the end of the day, it wound up being extremely under-framed. But this was before we really did any sort of exploration that we decided that we wanted to go this route. And it was just old. It was tired. And I didn't want to spend all this money in these bathroom areas and have them be brand new and the bedroom right next to it just seem as if we added lighting, we added switching receptacles and left the old trim and the old walls and patched and then put a new built-in in there. And the built-in's plumb level and square, and then the ceiling's out and we have weird scribes. It didn't make that much sense to me. I didn't know what the insulation looked like around the windows, if it would make my trim crack. So, I wanted to completely remodel the space, and they wanted to pull that from the budget to get the costs down. And we discussed it, and I explained my concerns to them, and they weren't all in. They didn't jump 2 feet and say, yeah, definitely, this is the right choice. They were concerned about spending the extra money. And I convinced them that, hey, listen, you're doing this once. Let's do it completely. I think that you're going to be much happier at the end of the day. And these are the benefits of doing so. Um, so they ended up signing up for that. We gutted the entire space. We reframed all the walls, sistering studs on. The ceiling ended up being extremely underframed for the plaster, and a lot of the ceiling rafters had already started to sag and crack. So we completely reframed the ceiling. Everything was now plumb, flat, level, and square, not just in the bathroom areas, but in the bedroom areas as well. So this was a full renovation. We redid all of the utilities, all of the plumbing. Excuse me. We added a new stack, a second stack. We replaced the existing cast iron stack. Um, and this is what I wanted to do, because at the end of the day, this is essentially more than half of their second floor. And with all of the areas being brand new, I was afraid that you'd walk in, the bathrooms would look amazing, crisp corners, everything just flat and essentially perfect. And then you'd walk into this bedroom and it just wouldn't match that. And I'm all for preserving details and character in a home, but I also need to make sure that this space is cohesive with everything else around it. So if I have a brand new bathroom attached to an older house and we have new trim on the outside of that wall that we added that doesn't have all of the paint and character that the trim and the rest of the space, I have to have that conversation with the customers. Hey, are you fine with the old trim butting up against the new trim? Do you want to just replace all the trim in here to match? So for me, the customer really wanted a clean space. She loves the character of the old home, which I do as well, but she wanted an updated, clean space, and she wanted to paint everything white. So we didn't really have much to hide anything. There wasn't a ton of architectural detail. So for me, a really clean, flat space where the lines are all plumb, level, and square, and then that to me is very important. I think that there's nothing there to hide or distract you of anything. So we decided to maintain and preserve the architectural details that would be almost impossible to recreate or cost prohibitive. So, excuse me. For me, that's what the delineation here is. Plaster can be replaced with drywall, and especially the old plaster that's cracked. And it's a 1-to-1 trade. You're not going to lose anything there. Replacing plumbing and electrical, no brainer. It's all open. We got rid of a ton of knob and tube. Old ungrounded wire and receptacles were all replaced with new wires. All of the old plumbing was terminated, and we ran new plumbing. We brought a new supplies up to be able to feed the additional bathroom so that they had enough water volume. The molding was not a super crazy ornate detail, so we were able to actually modify a Kukin Brothers base cap and then get 5/4 poplar made from them. They had a special order milled for us to the size that we needed for the casing, because 3/4 pine wasn't going to do it. And I wanted poplar for the stability. So they actually milled us some 5/4 poplar, primed and finger jointed, that we were able to just put around over to match the existing details. We salvaged the doors. So there was a couple weird sized doors, and we pulled the slabs. We sanded them down, sealed in the old paint, any lead based paint, sealed it up, and then put a new finish on them. So they weren't brand new. They still had a tiny bit of character, but they weren't as mucked up as they were before. We pulled all old caulking out of them, patched any holes, major damage, and cleaned them up, because to me, that's something that is difficult or expensive to replicate. So we salvaged those old doors. We made new jambs, new stops for them. We matched the trim. There was a 4-foot cast iron tub that essentially would we couldn't really find anything in 4 feet, and it was in decent shape. The cast iron was in decent shape. It didn't have any major damage, but it was just old and tired. So rather than reglazing it, which I think it creates somewhat of a can of worms because then you're constantly reglazing it, we ended up wet sanding the entire tub, all of the porcelain, and then we got a buffer just like you would do with car paint and polished it and brought the sheen back up. So we were able to pull that old tub, get it into the space, cleaned it all up, and then reset it in the space once we reframed the floors and got all the plumbing roughed in. So we maintained that. And then the other thing was the old flooring. There's no subfloor. It's 3/4 nail in place, linear grain, straight grain, heart pine flooring. So it would be tough. It's throughout the whole second floor and the first floor. It would be tough to match that with today's pine flooring because it's such fast growth. The grain just doesn't match, even if you stain it the exact same way. So we decided to protect those floors throughout the renovation and then get them refinished during the job, and then at the end putting a final screen coat on. We also salvaged all the old door hardware and the mortise locks and cleaned them up, serviced them, polished them, oiled them. So the details that I felt were worth salvaging and worth maintaining and preserving, I think that we did a decent job being the stewards for this home. We got rid of the stuff that was a health or safety issue. We replaced or replicated stuff that was not too expensive to do, right? Even the trim, how much time are we going to spend trying to maintain and prep the old trim to accept new paint and not have a failing finish and tie in with new walls, with new trim to the old trim? I think that I would rather just make all new trim in that whole space and have it all match and have it look cohesive. So we did all of those things so that this space felt old. It still had a lot of that character, but it was clean, it was updated, it was safe, and it was nice and new. So again, being a steward for this home and for this renovation, I spoke to the customers and I explained what I felt was important to save and salvage and maintain, and what, from a cost standpoint, made more sense to replace or just get rid of. Another thing was the windows. The windows were not original to the house, but they weren't that old and they were decent windows. They were full frame replacements. So it made sense for us to sand them and prep them and repaint them rather than replace all of those windows. Again, they weren't original to the house, but they were full frame replacements that were maybe 25 years old or so, and they were in good shape and they were all wood windows. So we prepped them and saved them. We put all new insulation in the walls, made sure that everything was foamed around the windows, all new fire blocking because it was balloon framed. So we chose our battles, and we did what we needed to from a health and safety and structural standpoint. And we did a little bit more as far as the bedroom area with reframing all of the walls. That wasn't a necessary thing to do. But I think that when you look at the overall cost of the job and what the scope was, that it made the most amount of sense for this space. And again, at the end of the day, through design elements, through stylings, through finishes. We chose all marble tile for the floors, marble tile in the one bathroom completely, Carrara marble tile in there, marble tops. The other bathroom was a standard subway tile with marble tops, inset cabinets. So we chose and selected, it was chrome hardware, some unlacquered brass hardware. So stylings, finishes, and design elements that are very classic. A color palette that was very classic, nothing too bold. We used a basket weave marble on the one floor in the bathroom. So we brought in all of these elements that were very traditional, very classic, but new and transitional and updated. and we salvaged doors and hardware and flooring and made this space still retain the character of the old home, while being new and fresh and plumb and level and square. And at the end of the day, these customers completely understood the vision. They completely understood the cost of fully renovating this space and not just leaving the bedroom intact and patching walls, putting a beam in, patching the ceiling and drywalling over the ceiling, replacing some trim, sanding. They understood when it was all said and done, the space turned out beautiful. Everything was cohesive. Everything matched, the flow from one space to the next. It was all the same period. It wasn't as if we pulled one space and demoed one space and tied it in with a new space. Everything felt of the same age, and that was very cohesive. And it really hit the mark as far as preserving the architectural details of the home while updating it and making it newer and healthier and safer. So that's something that after the fact, the customers fully understood the value of that. And we're very grateful that we spent the extra money on the budget to do that. And it's an easy answer to that question when you look back on it, right? Hindsight's 2020. But when we were discussing the budget for this job and the design elements, and we had an architectural plan for this, that wasn't necessarily the case. It wasn't to gut everything and reframe everything and make new trim. And at the end of the day, they were so happy that we ended up doing that. And that's something that I wouldn't have done early on in my career. I wouldn't have demanded them to do that. And I don't know if I'd even have that conversation because it's a tough conversation. I would have been more concerned with landing the job at the price point the customers wanted, and not necessarily standing behind my wants, my needs, my ethos as far as business goes. And that decision now is based on many things. It's what I want for my business, it's what I want for my reputation, but it's also my liability, my responsibility, and my warranty that I have to protect. We do this brand new space and frame everything, and the bathrooms look perfect, and then we get done and they're unhappy with the boogered up trim. They're unhappy with the old hardware that just looks 100 years old and it's not cleaned up and polished. They're not happy the fact that the trim against the ceiling of the new built-in that we installed is scribed to an unflat ceiling or feathered in with drywall compound to try and make it flat, that their plaster ceiling or newly drywalled ceiling still has sags in it, it's still cracking. So the decision was made based on my experience and based on what I want to do with business and what I want to do with standing behind my work. And after all said and done, they were super grateful for it and understood what I wanted to do, but that wasn't always the case. So there was a huge lesson and a lot of takeaways there for me. And ever since that job, it just kind of reaffirmed what I want to be doing and who I want to be working for. And again, it's not necessarily what I value as an individual, because I don't necessarily value all the same things as my customers, but I know what I value in business and what I value with the work that I want to be doing. And I want to be able to fully stand behind my work and be able to offer a service that we're not compromising those details. And I'm not opposed to value engineering something, but when it's compromising my reputation or an aspect of the project that I can't really stand behind or warranty, I'm not willing to do that anymore. So working in old homes, very challenging. Dealing with customers who own old homes and delineating what path to take, what route to choose, what needs to be replaced, what needs to be salvaged, where you can kind of give and take within a budget and within a project to still meet your end goal and your requirements for your business and your warranty and what you want to be doing. I can't tell you where that line is in the sand. You have to delineate that yourself and figure out what serves yourself and your customers the best. This is what works for me, and this is the approach that I take. And it's taken a long time to get there, and it wasn't always the case. But just keep this in mind when you're looking at another project, or when you have a customer with an old home that wants to meet with you, or they're pricing something with different contractors. Don't be afraid to offer them an option that's a slight upgrade that I truly feel is the better decision in the long run. This is their forever home. This is where they're raising their family. Let's spend a little bit of extra money and do this all right. So it's something that I can be proud of. It's something that I can stand behind. And at the end of the day, I know you're going to be much happier with this decision down the road. So that's it for this week. Working in older homes, it's a love-hate relationship. A lot of times I hate working in them, but I love the challenge. I love being a steward for that home. I love um, the drastic change between what was there and what is now there. I love peeling back the layers. You know, so many people renovate and they just slap on and they add on and they band-aid and they fix on a surface level, rather than, hey, at what point are you going to peel this all back? It's been slapped on there for 100 years. Let's get rid of all of this old stuff and just start new. And it makes a massive difference. And I do love that. There are a lot of headaches and challenges that come along with it, but I really do love older homes. That's what I specialize in, from site protection to the details to working through critical details. I really do enjoy old homes. So hopefully this helps you guys out if you have something come across your plate, or if you're afraid to try and talk to a customer about what a potential upgrade may be. Just remember that you're serving your customers, but you're also serving your own business and your own reputation. And when you leave that job, you want to ensure that everything is up to your standards. And you can't always let the customer dictate that, because that's defining you and that's defining your reputation. So sometimes you have to stick your foot out, or stick your foot in the door. Don't let them close it all the way and say, hey, you know what? This is going to be our better option here. Next week, I think I will do a blog post on my vacation to Whistler, because I was sick. Amazing skiing, beautiful area. I'd really like to go out there during the summer. Winter, totally different vibe. Amazing, beautiful, like nothing I've ever seen. It's just so expansive and so massive. Love to get out there during the summer. We'll have to see. Maybe I'll get the family out there. Thank you again to Chris for all of the coffee. I can't wait to try this and not let Rachel try any of it. Thank you for the t-shirt. Whoever else wants to send me coffee, let me know. I'll give you my address. You can send me as much coffee as you want. I can never have too much coffee. I hope you guys have a good week, a good weekend. Springtime is rolling around. We have daffodils popping up. The weather's getting warmer. It's a nice time of year. So hopefully those outdoor projects are rolling out. Everyone's, daylight savings time. It's staying light a little bit later. It's nice. I like this time of year. So hopefully you guys are having a good week. Enjoy yourself. If you're enjoying this, again, as always, spread the word. Tell everyone you can. Post it on your Instagram. Post it on your feed, story, whatever it may be. Hop online. Give us a review. Shoot me an email with your questions if you have something that you want me to elaborate on or record something. Email's best. It's tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. As always, I appreciate your support, all the love, all the emails that are coming in with recommendations and questions. I love it. I'm not the best at getting back to people right away, but I will get back to you. If I don't, follow up with another email, because I may have missed it, but I try and get back to everyone. So I appreciate you guys with all your recommendations, all your questions, all the support. Have a good rest of the week, and I will catch up with you guys next week.